Hey Blake, I've got your most recent quiz here over evaluating functions. This was the email that you sent me earlier today. Thanks for reaching out. So in this lesson, it is about writing inverse functions. And so when we write inverse functions, essentially what we're doing is we're solving the equation for the other variable. And so students a lot of times look at function notation and say, well, I don't really see two variables. I see this f of x and I see an x. F of x can also be the same thing as y. And so what I always start with is saying, just switch it to y to make it a little bit easier to work with. So we're going to solve this equation for x. It's currently solved for y. We're going to solve it for x. We do that by adding 10 to both sides. So we get y plus 10 equals 2x, and then we're going to divide everything by 2. And then you can see this is where that 1/2 comes from. So if I can put a 1 in front of this y, and it's a little bit easier to see, 1/2 y plus 5 equals x. Well, we're going to use function notation, so we're going to change that x to, it looks like here they're using h of x. And they're using x as the variable here in place of y. Remember, I switched that to y on my own, just because when you're trying to solve an equation with an f of x, it just looks funny. So now I'm going to switch this variable back to x. And then they're using h of x for their function notation. Question 4 says, two functions are graphed on the coordinate, which represents where f of x equals g of x. So this is where do the two lines, or where do the two graphs intersect, and it happens at two spots. It happens here, and it happens here. And so for f of x and g of x, we're looking at where on the x-axis do these two graphs intersect. So the blue line and the red parabola there, they intersect when x is -4 and when x is 0. So f of -4 equal and g of -4, so it happens at the same spot. When x is -4, they equal the same thing, and when x is 0, they equal the same thing. So this one, you're actually looking for these numbers in the parentheses. Those are the x values where those two graphs intersect, and it happens in two spots, so you need two answers. Okay, the next question is question 6. It says, which statement is true regarding the graphed function? So I need to scroll down a little bit so I can see what statements it's given. And so again, this is about where they're intersecting. And so you can see their intersection here, the red dot. And then what x value does that happen at? Well, the x values are listed here on the x-axis. And so this is -1. This one's not labeled, but this is +1. So this is happening at 0. So f of 0 is equal to g of 0 because that's the x-coordinate where those two graphs intersect. Question 8 again is asking you to write the inverse. So again, I'm going to switch that f of x to be a y just so that it's a little easier for me to solve. We're solving the equation for y. And now we have to divide, solving the equation for x. So now we have to divide everything by 2. So now we get 1/2 y minus 1/2 equals x. And so now we're going to switch it and use that function notation. H of x equals 1/2 x minus 1/2. Question 10, another one asking, asking what's true. And so again, we're looking with what's the x value where these two graphs intersect, and it's happening. You can just kind of draw a vertical line and see where do you hit the x-axis. You hit it at -2. So f of -2 is when f of -2 is equal to g of -2. That's where those two lines intersect. So it looks like really just kind of two types of questions, understanding really this function notation. When we say f of x, g of x, h of x, and then you put a number in place of that, that's like saying 4 is your input. 4 is the x. Don't really talk about what the y is in any of these cases. We just want to know what's the x value where these two graphs intersect. So let me go ahead and, well, I guess you don't need another retake because you've only taken it once. So after you watch this video, give yourself another shot at the quiz and reach back out if you need more help.